Welcome to the Daily Influence, where our mission is to deliver a daily dose of positive influence that can uplift you personally or be shared within your sphere of influence. While not every episode may directly apply to your unique circumstances, we strive to provide insights and inspiration relevant to most people's daily, weekly, and monthly lives. Whether you are tuning in during the morning, noon, or night, the Daily Influence is here for you. Listen, share, and embrace the power of influence in your life. Hey everybody, Brian Smith here with the Daily Influence, and today in our Who Am I segment we are going to be tackling self-justification. Going to point out early that one of my favorite books, Leadership and Self-Deception, is one of the greatest books that I've read and has really helped me and our team to understand how we deceive ourselves and how we justify our behaviors. When we do something or are behaving in a way that is contrary to what is expected, that could mean promising something to somebody, not fulfilling an obligation. But whenever those things happen, the first inclination that we have as humans is to justify our behavior, to have an excuse for it. And that's what we're going to talk about today is why do we do so? Why do we have self-deception? Why do we justify our actions? Why do we lie to ourselves and lie to others about our actions to cover up maybe a mistake we've made or a trait that we have or a repetitive action that we do? And we're going to talk about that here. Sometimes the lies that we tell ourselves are just white lies. They're just simple ones just to cover up and make ourselves feel better. If I eat that cookie or that cupcake, it's really going to be okay. Or if I'm late to this meeting, it'll be okay. Nobody will notice. Or I can give that excuse and I'm just not going to do whatever it is you intended to do. And it'll be okay. Nobody will ever think anything of it. But we do every time that we don't fulfill an obligation, every time we fail to fulfill something that we've done for somebody or didn't do for somebody, we chip away at our credibility, not just with ourselves, but with those people. And even if you come up with a good excuse, even if the justification is proper or it's true, there's still some deception there that it is okay. Because the truth is that every time that we fail to do or follow through on something that we say we're going to do, or that we trick ourselves into being something or someone that we really aren't or didn't intend to be, we're chipping away at that individual or overall credibility. There's a certain amount of self-deception that goes on with everybody, and the justification that goes with it really most of the time is fairly innocent. That's why I called it white lies earlier. It's usually little things like, I don't have to start a task right now because I can get to it later. If I put it off until the end, it'll be okay. I can get these things done in a certain amount of time. And you tell people this to make yourself feel good and to maybe get them off your back and to fulfill some obligation that you have to them, or that you just don't want to have to tell them the truth that you can't do something. So you tell them you can, and you decide to ask for forgiveness later instead of, permission to be wrong up front. You ask for forgiveness for being wrong later. And in that forgiveness, you usually come up with an excuse. It does make us feel better. Why we do these things to ourselves is a lot just plain and simply, it's about our ego. It's about making ourselves feel better, making ourselves not look bad in front of others. And our ego is a powerful thing as a human. It makes us hide behind justification. It helps us, we hide behind these deceiving behaviors that we have. And we use those as our shield to keep us from feeling negative about whatever it is that we might be failing or we didn't hold ourselves up to. Oftentimes, some of the things that you should look for when you're challenged to find, when am I being self-deceptive? When am I using justification? Is when you use things like my point of view or my truth. And when you know that your truth is contrary or your point of view is different, and I don't mean different as in an objective way, I mean flatly opposite and not the truth. A lot of us will just fall back on, well, my truth in this situation is that X, Y, Z. And when you start hearing those words, you really need to stop, listen to learn, and understand why somebody might be invoking point of view, my truth, my opinion. As we know, opinions aren't always facts, truths aren't always truths, perceptions aren't always reality. And when we use them as a way to self-justify, and when others use them for us, it's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity for us to understand insecurities of those that we influence around us, or how others are making us be insecure. And when we can slow down and self-reflect on these instances, we can learn a lot about ourselves. They can help us grow, and they can help us to manage self-deception and manage self-justification a little bit more. I do this also. I don't just write about it, but I'm human too, so I fail in my own convictions. To fail is human. I work very hard about owning up to the mistakes that I make, and I ask my team to hold me accountable and not take justification, and don't allow me to deceive myself or anybody else in my actions. It's really hard to do that sometimes because I still do it. I have had my partner Greg call me out on my inability to communicate clearly, and then I give an excuse why I didn't communicate clearly, and her and Billy sat me down and said, no, you can't do that. You said that you wanted us to call you out, so here's the example. And it works. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, it damages my ego, but I like that they have the confidence to do that, and I also have seen in them the ability to be less self-deceptive and use less self-justification in their own challenges. So when you are in an environment where you have a good relationship like we do in ours, you can use those relationships to help defer and deflect self-deception and self-justification, and use it as opportunities to learn about each other, learn about self, and to move the marker forward, not only individually, but as a team. Renee is one of the best examples that I have of self-deception. And it was really interesting because if you haven't met Renee, she's an amazingly positive person, sometimes over the top. She can come across very gregarious and very positive very early in meeting people in a relationship. And I never knew until one time when she shared with me that she has a lot of anxiety meeting people. I would have never picked up on that. And her way of deceiving herself of that anxiety is to overextend positivity when meeting people. Well, what it did is some people would look at her and think, well, that must be fake, that can't be real. And the reality is she already was a very positive person. So it's not that her positivity was fake. Maybe the level was a little bit exaggerated, but she was using that to mask her anxiety and her uncomfortableness so that she didn't portray that to other people. And I always thought that was interesting because I always thought that was just naturally the way that she was. But it was her defense mechanism. It was her way of overcoming or deceiving herself past the anxiety that she felt when she was meeting new people. I still struggle with self-deception for myself in situations where I'm uncomfortable, telling myself that I belong to a certain or within a certain group of people, or that I am worthy of being shoulder to shoulder with my peers. And I oftentimes have to blow myself up and insert myself into situations where I'm often not ready for it. I kind of pushed my way into that and hope that I will deceive myself and overcome my anxieties, overcome the fears that I have in these certain situations and move me past it. I also tell myself sometimes that it's okay to miss working out, or it's okay to be late on a deadline, or it's okay to not do something that I said I can do, and oftentimes justify it for very simple and really not the right reasons. I own the company. I own X. I'm this important person. And I find myself in those instances catching myself fairly early, which means that I'm doing a pretty good job of holding myself accountable to my self-deception, trying to recognize it sooner and correct it as soon as I can. Each of us lives in this world of self-deception. You have to find where those things are happening in your life. The takeaways today are that we lie to ourselves because it makes us feel better. And it helps us hide behind that lie and convince ourselves of whatever false reality it is that will move us past the point that we're at. The other one is we often want our lies to be the truth. We want to believe what we're telling ourselves. We want what we feel about ourselves to be true. And that ultimate self-deception can have us living through the lies as truth, which means that we could have some damaging behaviors because of those. And we need to be careful about how we lie to ourselves. Can I afford this? Can I not afford this? Is this a good relationship to be in? Should I not do this? Should I not do that? Understand the situations you find yourself and be honest about those situations. And finally, being honest requires hard work and patience. Sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror and say, I can't afford that, or to tell somebody, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to tag along. It's really important that you're honest with yourself and that you put the effort in the hard work that goes into being honest. And the last thing is it's painful sometimes. Honesty can hurt. It can be painful. It's hard to look in the mirror and admit to ourselves our failures or our inability to do certain things or to be a certain person. And so my advice is it's the best thing for you, because you will find in the end, being honest with yourself and others, not self-deceiving yourself and not justifying your way through problems, will make you a more positive, influential person in the future. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.